I got to tell you, that was 2+ minutes of just sexy right there. One thing I admire is sexy. Black Keys and Black Mud, 7:53 the time, 7 minutes before 8 o'clock on an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, sunny Tuesday morning. It's wonderful to see the sunshine like it is, and mild temperatures throughout the day. High 60s, lower 70s here along the coast. High 70s, lower 80s inland. That will change. That will change later this week. It's going to warm up again later this week and have some added humidity to it. But we still got a couple of days worth of this, so enjoy it while you can. So I was walking through Main Beach the other day. You take an afternoon stroll on a beautiful day, and I saw a mom with, and you can't call them toddlers if they're in a carriage. So a little younger than a toddler, a baby, an infant, let's say, right before toddlerism, if that's the word. And she was on the phone, and the baby was being fussy, and she handed the baby an iPad. And it struck me. Obviously, when my daughter was of that age, there were no iPads or anything to hand them. You just kind of, the natural thing to have done was to end the phone call and pay attention to my infant, right? That would be the normal thing. But anyway, that beside the point. I guess there's a lot of screen time being given to infants. Okay. What we're finding now is that it's linked up with developmental delays in toddlerhood. And toddlerhood, that's the word. So you handing your baby a phone or a tablet to play with may seem like a harmless solution when you're busy, but it could quickly affect their development. Having anywhere from 1 to 4 hours of screen time per day at age 1 is linked with higher risks of developmental delays in communication, in fine motor skills and problem solving, and personal and social skills by the time they're age 2. That's how quick it affects them. This is according to a study published yesterday in the Journal of American Medicine, Pediatrics. It's a really important study because it has a very large sample size of children who've been followed for several years. The sample size was over 7,000 kids, almost 7,100. It was 7,097 to be exact. The study fills an important gap because it identifies specific developmental delays in skills like communication and problem solving associated with screen time. There haven't been a lot of studies prior to this, or there haven't really been a lot of studies on this. This is the first that we're seeing of these results that were just released yesterday. The children and their mothers were part of this study. It's a Project Birth 3-generation cohort study, and were recruited from 50 obstetric clinics and hospitals between July 2013 and March 2017. Followed them for all that time. The study measured how many hours children used screens per day at age 1 and how they performed in several developmental domains. They are communication skills, fine motor skills, personal and social skills, and problem solving. Okay? At ages 2 and 4 is when they were checked on those. Both measures were according to mothers' self-reports. So that's important to remember here. By age 2, those who had had up to 4 hours of screen time per day were up to 3 times more likely to experience developmental delays in communication and problem-solving skills. Those who had spent 4 or more hours with screens were almost 5 times more likely to have underdeveloped communication skills, 2 times more likely to have subpar fine motor skills, and 2 times more likely to have underdeveloped personal and social skills by age 2. Now, by age 4, the risk remained only in the communication and problem-solving categories. And one of the areas that's relatively understudied in the whole screen time literature is looking at impacts of screen exposure on very young kids, especially when screens are introduced to babies. The potential harm of screen time on communication skills may have to do with children being robbed of drivers for language development. kids learn how to talk if they're encouraged to talk. And very often, if they're just watching a screen, they're not having an opportunity to practice talking. They may hear a lot of words, but they're not practicing saying a lot of words or having a back and forth interaction with anyone. It should be with the parent. Now, technology use can take time away from interpersonal relationships that nurture social skills, since obviously real people are more multidimensional than characters on a screen. Looking at people's faces is when our brains turn on to figure how to interact with them. Also, with passive screen viewing that doesn't have an interactive or physical component, kids are more likely to be sedentary and then aren't able to practice motor skills. If children don't have enough time to play or are handed a tablet to pacify negative emotions, that could prevent the important developmental milestones that is the ability to navigate discomfort. Longer term, one of the real goals is for kids just to be able to sit quietly in their own thoughts. Remember that? Remember sitting quietly with your own thoughts? That's when you're allowed to be a little bit bored for a second. They get a little uncomfortable, but then they're like, okay, I want to make myself more comfortable, and that's how creativity happens. There are other factors that can affect a child's development, like genetics and adverse experiences like neglect or abuse, or socioeconomic factors. In this latest research, mothers of children with high levels of screen time were more likely to be younger, have never given birth before, they have a lower household income, and have a lower education level, and in many cases have postpartum depression. The study itself does have limitations due to social desirability bias, wanting to say the right or socially acceptable thing. Some parents may underreport their child's screen time and overreport how their child is doing developmentally. That's one of the problems you may come across when when you're depending on the parent to report, hey, how's your kid doing? Additionally, the authors didn't have details on what children's screen time involved, and not all forms are equal in their capacity to harm or benefit. The other question that's always really important is the parent watching the child? When a parent is watching with a child, if they're watching the screen with a child, that tends to mitigate a lot of the negatives. So there are healthier ways to occupy your child. If you need to keep your toddler busy so you can get things done or have some solitude, try giving them a book. How about a book? How about coloring materials or toys? They can even sometimes enjoy those activities while they're secured in a high chair. If you need to rely on screens, sometimes, opt for educational content or video chats with a loved one so that they can still get some social interaction. It's so important to get that social interaction. One issue with some online children's content is that parents will think it's educational simply because it's marketed that way and has a lot of information about the alphabet or colors or numbers or animals that their children can see and hear. But what jumpstarts learning is content that helps children apply their knowledge beyond just rote memorization, so that they can navigate the real world where things are more unpredictable and require more creativity and resilience. So choosing, even if you just choose longer videos, since watching lots of short videos might affect children's attention span and their ability to understand what they're watching. So be choosy about when you rely on screen time and turn devices off when they're not in use. Aimless viewing can also distract kids from then focusing on an activity that's at hand or the in-person communication that they so desperately need. And again, it boils down to this in being a parent. Live by example by not having an excess amount of screen time yourself, since more than anything else, kids tend to mimic what they see. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends considering the quality of screen time rather than just the quantity of it. But the organization does have resources for determining guidelines and limits for your family, like in its family media plan, so you can tailor to your own family's needs and advice for helping your kids build healthy habits. We need to just slow down, be as careful and mindful as we can about keeping kids anchored in the real world. which is really how we evolved as humans. There's going to be plenty of time for screen time later once we get a better sense of who the kids are and what they need. But yeah, just handing a kid a screen just to pacify them while you want to talk on the phone, that's not cool. 8:03 the time. It's the Mornings with Ed show.
The most important conversations, the best entertainment, the Mornings with Ed show on the Voice of Laguna.